Trust is the foundation of every relationship. But what happens when that trust is shattered by a secret so dark, it changes everything? This is the story of a woman who gave her heart to the man she thought was her soulmate, only to discover the shocking truth that left her world in pieces. This story is about Amina, a young woman with a kind heart who believed in the power of love. She had been through heartbreak before, but she was ready to love again. When she met Darius, she thought she had found the one. He was everything she ever wanted, charming, attentive, and seemingly perfect in every way. But as the relationship deepened, Amina unknowingly entered a world filled with lies, manipulation, and dark secrets. Little did she know, Darius was hiding a truth so shocking it would tear their relationship apart. It was a calm afternoon when Amina found herself sitting alone at a cafe, enjoying a rare moment of peace. The noise of the world outside seemed distant as she sipped her coffee, letting her mind wander. Life had been busy, filled with work and responsibilities, and she cherished these quiet moments when she could just breathe and relax. But then, something caught her attention. Across the room, a man walked in. Amina didn't notice him at first, but when their eyes met, something shifted. He was tall with dark hair and a mysterious aura. His deep, intense gaze felt like it was pulling her in. There was something magnetic about him that made her heart race. She couldn't explain it, but she felt drawn to him, as if they shared an unspoken connection. He walked toward her, his smile warm yet confident. "Is this seat taken?" he asked. Amina blinked, surprised by his sudden approach, but there was something in his smile that made her feel at ease. "No, not at all," she replied, gesturing for him to sit. As he settled in, a conversation began effortlessly. At first, it was small talk, about the cafe, the weather, the city. But as the minutes passed, they found themselves talking about books, music, and their shared love for adventure. Amina felt a spark, a connection she hadn't felt in a long time. The conversation was easy, as though they'd known each other for years. What struck Amina most was how Darius listened. He didn't just hear her. He listened. He made her feel seen, something that had been rare in past relationships. She opened up without hesitation, telling him about her dreams, her fears, and the things that made her happy. He shared his own stories, his own thoughts, and with every word, Amina felt like they were on the same wavelength. The evening passed quickly, and as the cafe began to empty, Darius looked at her, his gaze soft yet sincere. "Can I have your number?" he asked, a genuine smile playing on his lips. Without thinking, Amina nodded and scribbled her number on a napkin. There was no hesitation. Something in Darius made her feel safe, and for the first time in a long while she allowed herself to believe in something real. "Call me sometime," Darius said, his voice warm. "I will," Amina replied, her heart fluttering. As he left, Amina sat there for a moment, processing everything that had just happened. She hadn't expected to meet someone like him today, but as she walked home that night, she couldn't help but smile, thinking about their conversation, the way he made her feel. Little did Amina know, the man who had captured her heart was hiding a secret, one that would change everything. The days turned into weeks, and Amina felt like she was living in a fairy tale. Darius wasn't just kind, he was thoughtful in ways that made her heart melt. Weekends were their time, wandering through busy streets, stumbling upon hidden cafes, or sitting in quiet parks sharing stories. His laugh had a way of erasing her worries, and his touch felt like home. With every passing moment, she fell deeper. Darius had a way of making her feel like the most important person in the world. One day, it was a bouquet of wildflowers left at her door. Another, a sweet note tucked into her bag saying, "You make every day brighter." And then there were his surprises, spontaneous trips to beaches at sunset or cobblestone towns that felt like they belonged in a dream. He seemed to know exactly what would make her smile. Amina found herself dreaming of their future, long walks, shared laughter, and building a life full of love and adventure. She had never felt so connected to someone before. Darius seemed perfect. Too perfect, maybe. But then there were moments. Small, fleeting ones, but enough to make her pause. Sometimes, in the middle of their happy days, Darius would pull away, not physically, but emotionally. His warm eyes would cloud over, and his easy smile would vanish. It was like a shadow passed over him, pulling him somewhere she couldn't follow. "Is something wrong?" Amina would ask gently, her voice full of concern. He'd shake his head, offering her a small smile. "I'm fine, just thinking," he'd reply. But the way his gaze drifted told her otherwise. At first, she ignored it. Everyone had their off days, right? She convinced herself it wasn't a big deal. But those moments kept happening. The distance between them didn't grow wider. It just lingered, quiet and unsettling, like a whisper in the background of their perfect days. The nagging feeling in her chest grew stronger. Sometimes, in the quiet of the night, Amina would replay those moments in her mind. The way his mood shifted, the way his answers felt too polished. She wanted to believe it was nothing. She wanted to trust him. But no matter how much she tried to push it aside, a small voice inside her wouldn't be silenced. What if something's wrong? It asked. What if Darius wasn't who she thought he was? Amina tried to ignore the doubt creeping into her heart. Love was about trust, wasn't it? She told herself she was overthinking that their connection was strong enough to overcome any doubts. Yet, with each passing day, that sinking feeling refused to let go. Something wasn't right. And no matter how much she tried to convince herself otherwise, the whisper in her mind only grew louder. At first, it was nothing more than a small shift. Amina didn't notice it immediately, too caught up in the whirlwind of her growing love for Darius. But as the days turned into weeks, a subtle change began to take root. Darius, the man who had once been an open book, started to withdraw. It wasn't overt, but the signs were there, hidden in the spaces between his words and actions. The first clue came when Darius became increasingly secretive about his past. He would tell her stories, little fragments of his life before they met, but they were always incomplete. Whenever Amina tried to ask for more details, he would quickly shift the conversation elsewhere, as if he were uncomfortable with the questions. There was a hesitation in his eyes, a guardedness she hadn't noticed before. Amina, ever the understanding partner, didn't press him. After all, he had told her that he had been through a lot in his past, and everyone had their demons, right? She respected his need for privacy, assuring herself that when he was ready, he would share the details with her. But as time went on, those small gaps in his story grew larger. The more she tried to understand the man she was falling for, the more distant he became. It was as if there was an invisible wall between them, one that she couldn't break through no matter how hard she tried. Amina knew that relationships required trust, and she trusted Darius. She trusted him with her heart. Yet, there was this nagging feeling that something wasn't quite right, that there was something he wasn't telling her. Soon, the troubling signs became impossible to ignore. Darius would disappear for hours at a time with no explanation, his phone often going unanswered when she tried to reach him. Sometimes he would cancel plans last minute, leaving Amina waiting in a restaurant or at home, staring at the empty space where he should have been. Each time he apologized, claiming it was work or some personal matter that had come up. He assured her that it was never about her, that he just needed time to sort through things. But Amina couldn't help but feel confused, even hurt. It wasn't like him to be so distant. The person she had fallen for, loved, spontaneous, and present. This new Darius, this version of him, was cold, detached, and elusive. She began to question herself. Was she asking too much? Was she being unreasonable by wanting to spend more time with him? But deep down, a voice whispered that something else was going on. She could feel it in her gut, a sense that Darius was hiding something, a secret that was slowly eating away at the foundation of their relationship. Still, she tried to push the thoughts away, telling herself that every relationship had its ups and downs. She wanted to believe that everything would go back to normal, which Darius would open up to her in time. But the cracks were already starting to show, and she couldn't ignore them any longer. And then came the night everything changed, the night when everything she thought she knew about Darius was thrown into question. It was supposed to be a quiet evening, just another routine night. Amina was waiting at Darius's apartment, expecting him back in an hour from a meeting he had mentioned earlier. But when that hour turned into 2, then 3, a creeping unease began to fill her. Something felt off. Her calls went unanswered. His phone went straight to voicemail. She sat there, the silence growing louder with each passing minute. Amina tried to brush it off at first, but that nagging feeling in her gut wouldn't go away. She trusted him, but tonight, something felt wrong. Amina couldn't just sit around anymore. She had to find out where he was, why he wasn't answering. It wasn't like Darius to disappear without a word. Something inside her pushed her to go look for him. So, without thinking too much about it, she grabbed her jacket, stepped out of the apartment, and headed into the night. Her mind raced as she drove. Was something wrong? Had he gotten into an accident? Or was he caught up in something else? She couldn't ignore the sinking feeling in her stomach, the sense that something wasn't adding up. She drove to the spot where Darius had said he'd be. The streetlights flickered in the distance as Amina parked her car, her heart pounding. As she stepped out, she scanned the area searching for him. And then she saw him. But this wasn't the Darius she knew. He wasn't alone. There, outside a building, Darius was standing with a woman Amina recognized, a woman she had seen around but never thought much about. The way they stood close, the way their hands lingered, and the way they looked at each other. Amina felt her heart drop. The chemistry between them was undeniable. Her body froze, her breath caught in her throat. The pieces that never quite fit together before now clicked into place. It was all there, the truth she wasn't ready to face. The man she had trusted with everything, the man she had given her heart to, was hiding something from her. No, not just something. Someone. Without thinking, Amina turned and walked away. The weight of betrayal was too much to bear. Her thoughts were a blur, her emotions a whirlwind. She wanted to scream, to confront him, but her legs refused to move any closer. She didn't know what to do or where to go, but she knew one thing for certain. Nothing would ever be the same again. The next morning, Amina couldn't hold it in any longer. She had to confront him. She couldn't just sit in the silence wondering what was going on. She invited Darius over to her place, and when he arrived, she didn't waste any time. Who was she, Darius? Amina's voice was shaking but firm. Why were you with her? Darius's face turned pale, and for the first time, Amina saw something in his eyes that she couldn't quite understand. Fear. It was as if he had been caught in a lie he couldn't escape. Amina, he started, but his words trailed off. He looked down at his feet, struggling to find the right words. Amina's heart was pounding. Tell me the truth, Darius. What's going on? Darius took a deep breath and finally spoke, his voice heavy with guilt. I never meant for you to find out this way. I never wanted to hurt you. The truth is, I've been lying to you from the start. I've been seeing someone else. I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't know how to let you go. Amina's breath caught in her throat. She felt her world crumble around her as the reality of his betrayal sank in. I'm sorry, Amina, Darius continued, his eyes filled with regret. I never wanted to hurt you. I just didn't know how to stop this. But it was too late. The damage had already been done. The days that followed were a blur for Amina. She couldn't believe what had happened. She had trusted him with her heart, with everything she had, and now she felt lost. She moved out of the apartment they had shared, taking only the things that mattered most to her. The love she had once felt for him was replaced by a cold emptiness. She couldn't understand how someone who had claimed to love her could betray her so deeply. But as time went on, Amina began to heal. She focused on herself, her work, and her passions. She found strength in her own resilience. She didn't need Darius or anyone else to define her happiness. Amina's journey was painful, but it was also empowering. She learned that love wasn't about giving away your heart blindly. It was about choosing who to trust wisely. She learned that her heart was precious, and it deserved to be treated with respect and care. Trust is fragile, and when it is broken, it can feel like the end of the world. But as Amina discovered, it's not the end. It's the beginning of something stronger, an opportunity to rebuild, to grow, and to trust again, but this time with wisdom and caution.